Good evening. You are listening live to the Extreme Movie Show. I'm your host, Rob. Alongside me tonight from the great frigid Midwest, I have RDV. Tonight's movie, 3 Days of the Condor, I believe 1975, starring Robert Redford, Faye Dunaway, and of course Max von Sydow. Dino De Laurentiis produced this. He of the Conan fame and other great stuff there too. He was like the high-class king of films from the 80s. If you go back to the 70s, I always liked that kind of stuff. 3 Days of the Condor. To me, RDB, this is a spy thriller. It's got an impossibly handsome, beautiful cast, whatever you want to call it. It's got your everyday man, if you can believe Robert Redford is a bookish CIA guy, getting caught up in something that maybe he shouldn't have, or who knows what. Feels kind of like Hitchcock to me. But overall, this film, I enjoyed it. It's 2 hours long. It feels it. But it really is one of those earlier films that make you feel like government conspiracy, thriller, not making fun of it like Mel Gibson did 20 years ago or whatever, kind of, sort of.
Conspiracy movie.
This is such a great little challenge or thriller of a film there too. I enjoyed it a lot. I think it's one of his better films. I know people older than me that were big Robert Redford fans. I'm thinking my parents here, they love this film too, and they encouraged me to see it when I was really young. I was actually named after Robert Redford, is how the story goes, but that's for another stream. What's your initial take on 3 Days of the Condor, RDV?
This is my third time watching this movie, third or fourth. It's just an overall fun thriller movie about a guy he doesn't know who he can trust. I love stuff like The Fugitive, so this is right up there with that. And then it's 70s, so they're like, it's before all the social media, all the different cameras and stuff, where they can like really spy on you. Back then, the government really, they go by listening through the phone line. That's about it, because they didn't have they didn't really have the satellite technology. Not that I know of. They didn't never really showed it anything. But I loved it. You could get away with more stuff. Like just the whole thrill of it, as far as Robert Redford being manly. Like we always talk about how we like Charles Heston because he's a man's man. Robert Redford is a smooth talking man's man to this movie. He was his masculinity. He was
very charming. The ladies loved the guy. I mean, he's one of those guys you look at like Brad Pitt and you go, I'm a straight heterosexual male, but damn it, pretty guy. You know what I'm saying? And I can say that in all honesty without feeling weird or funny about it. He's a handsome fellow.
Yeah. Obviously, this is a first attempt for this movie. It's been remade into a TV series. I like the fact that they did it back then. Like it's only a couple of years after the book was written, like 68 or 69. They did change a little bit of the character from the book, what they always do. I know he's always book accurate, but a lot of people don't believe it because so much Hollywood is fake in there. But I was talking to you before this, and I was reading up on this, and like they changed the name from which I'm glad they did, because Ronald Malcolm in the book does not just. It just sounds like a boring name. Joe Turner sounds more like a football name,
Yeah.
Yeah, it sounds like more a guy he's going to be able to do some more stuff. His job in this, he's just an analyst. He's not a field agent whatsoever. And I just love how like his character is, even the top bigwigs, like, who's this guy? He's like, oh, he's served in 2 years, like in the military, and this and like. You can't figure out, this guy is not supposed to be able to survive like this. If it really was a hit, how did he survive? They're thinking he had to be involved in this, and like they just totally doubt his character. Now, obviously, like I don't know if this would ever be possible, but then again, like I look at what our government is now, as far as it's just having people it just be like not qualified people. So it just, this guy, he's on his own. He has to kidnap, or not kidnap, but I mean, he basically goes up to Faye Dunaway, basically puts a gunner in, and basically says, I'm working for the CIA, but I was, but people are after me. I didn't do anything wrong, and I don't want to say it's Stockholm syndrome, but she does eventually come around to believe that he actually is who he says he is and stuff. And everything. So back to the point where she actually like just wants to go a skiing trip with this other guy, and the guy gets and this guy is kind of like he looks like a prick, or not a trustable guy. But anyway, but she ends up falling for Robert. Yeah, she ends up Yeah, he's a character. I'll say that. But she falls for Robert Redford. She kind of like sympathizes with him, like, and she knows that he could die, and it's so basically they spend the night together, trying to remember who it's is it Max von Sydow?
Yep.
Who's the guy he's hired
Yep.
to basically take out.
Yep.
And because the big wigs they don't want to, because they're yes, because they have the whole plot comes down to I love the end, like but I'll let you talk more about that, but the rest of it before we get to the end. But I gotta say this.
Yeah, I wanted to talk a little bit about Faye Dunaway actually, and the whole setup, because again, it's a 2-hour film, so it's pretty long, and it feels that way. It's very deliberate. To me, one of my favorite, most exciting parts of the whole film is actually the whole setup where we see him going to work in the morning. He's running a few minutes late. It's raining outside, and the place he works at is the CIA front for his job. And to me, as a very young man, one of my first jobs in my career was as a graphic artist for like a year. So that was when computers, you would have to schedule time on them, which is what he did. So I had this big nostalgia kick when I saw the early part too, because they had the old dot matrix printer going on too. They had lines that had to get checked in, and I liked how it was all very deliberate and shot, because of course, when he goes out for lunch a few hours later, probably 10, 15 minutes into the film, and comes back because he left out the back way he wasn't supposed to.
Yeah,
Max von Sydow, the hitman, didn't see him, so that's where he ends up being just a loose end. And it starts off basically the chase portion of it, which goes on for the second act till we get to the third. And to me, my biggest problem with this film, and it's really the only problem I have with it, is I didn't feel comfortable with the way he strong-armed Faye Dunaway. I mean, Faye Dunaway to me is a very classic-looking babe. She's absolutely gorgeous. I'm a huge fan of the Thomas Crown Affair, the original one, of course, not the remake. And even though I like Pierce Brosnan in the remake, it's nothing compared to the Steve McQueen one with Faye Dunaway in it. She's such a classy babe. And one thing I thought was kind of interesting too is, like I go, I don't know too much about the director other than it was Sidney Pollack and some of the other things about it. So I said, you know what, let me check out the writers, because I did not recognize these dudes' names. And one of the writers, Lorenzo Semple Jr., wrote several things. He's the guy that wrote Batman for television, but he also wrote Papillon, which is an absolutely incredible film. Steve McQueen's best, in my opinion. Parallax View, King Kong from '76, Flash Gordon, Max von Sydow's in that. And then very underrated, non-canon James Bond film from 1983, a remake of Thunderball called Never Say Never Again. This guy's written some really good stuff. And to your point that you mentioned about the 70s of technology was there, but the rate of data accumulation as well as the accuracy, like video and stuff, was a lot slower and not as big. So the ideas were still there. It's just that things really started taking off, obviously 10, 20 years later with computing power. So it's really neat to kind of see the fact that back then you would have spies and people around the world in real life put things in like the crossword puzzle in the New York Times or that sort of thing. And so you would have to have people, part of your job is to look this stuff up. It's kind of cool to see that secret side that means nothing to the average Joe like you or me. And to me, again, going back to what I was starting off with Faye Dunaway, the biggest problem I have is, like I say, he strong arms her and somehow convinces it. And it just doesn't work for me because she's so gorgeous. She's so beautiful and classy. She's like, as soon as you see her, like, oh, she's a catch. But then he's just charms and woos her way into her without even trying. Like when he's at her place and he's got the gun on her and he forces her to lay down on the bed. He tries to take a nap for a little bit. Then he sees her photos, goes, oh, is this what you do? These photos are lonely. I like them. It's like, damn you, Robert. Why are you so friggin' handsome? That just kind of didn't work for me. That being said, it's not a major flaw. I'd call it a strong minor one, because when you think about it, you're like, ugh. But other than that, Faye Dunaway is great in it, and having somebody like her that's not a dimwit, that's very like an equal in terms of screen presence and everything, I think is just absolutely tremendous and adds a lot to the film too. So again, it's one of those films where it's just a vehicle. You get an everyday man getting caught in stuff and getting chased, can't trust anybody. What's he going to do? And it has a cynical ending to it, which we'll talk about here shortly. But yeah, Faye Dunaway, total babe.
So yeah, you talk about the scene where he's in there where he wants to sleep. So he basically like goes on top of her on the bed, and then he basically puts her arm behind her because he knows basic training stuff, from his service. So, and he forces her arm with the gun on her bed, and that's how he's able to get some sleep, But like, in this, them talking to get to know each other. Eventually, I think he tie her up too? Tie her to the bed?
Yeah, I believe so. When he left and came back, yeah.
Yeah, he had to tie her up, and she's like, no. And he put the thing in her, and yeah, she's kind of paranoid too a little bit, and like I think she even tried calling the cops on him once. That's why he tied her up. He couldn't trust her. They even now this is kind of cool too. But in the scene, there's a scene there where this mailman shows up, delivery and stuff and everything, and the guy whips out like a machine gun, and like she's coming out from a shower, and you just see him struggling against the guy with the gun. For being an analyst, it's like he's not a field person,
right?
But he's not like it's not like you'd be like in today's movie. He just like overcomes a guy and that's it. And they actually made his character in the remake of this. They did a show based on this with Jeremy Irons' son, and they made him more of a wimp. So like Robert Redford's character here version is more like capable. He's not where the Max Iron version gets knocked out a couple times, or gets tricked. He's gullible. So it's a little bit more believable. But like you said, like this is like he's not yet like he's not Tom Cruise, Jack Reacher level.
Right. No, nobody is. Yeah.
No, exactly. And where this is still somewhat believable in this, because fist fights. Anyway, look, they dragged it out in this movie. Him and the assassin, the hitman, and eventually, like he's able to get the gun, but still, it's like it took a couple minutes. It wasn't just like he knocks the guy over with a coat hanger like Sean Connery, like James Bond, like he knows like expert skill. You can tell he's not a field agent. So it was kind of cool to see. There actually was some struggle in this.
Yeah, and like I say, it's like it's an everyman, and it's hard to say that because one, it's Robert Redford, two, he's a CIA agent, but to your point, not a field op. And I think the other main thing about it too is we see him kind of struggle through all this. It's a testament to Redford's acting ability, and that we can believe him even though he's a CIA agent. He's really just basically a bookworm, and so his expertise and what he feels comfortable with and knows how to implement is the thinking part of it too. It's not the mechanics of what do you really do in a situation like it. And the fact that it happens basically on everyday streets, I think, is fantastic, because we see him when the one cynical part that I liked, and I liked how it didn't happen early on, it happened maybe at the end of the first act, is when they recruit an old friend of his who also works for the CIA. Yes. So that way he feels comfortable giving himself in and coming in, because it's just like when he calls the operator and says, hey, we got hit, and the guy tries to make him confirm his name, and he says Condor, and he explains what happens, and then they're not sure. I totally believe in today's world, especially the way things are, that the cynicism about it is that, yeah, you can work for somebody and they can be your boss, but if you're a loose end, they're going to whack you. They're going to find something wrong. They're going to set you up. They're going to honeypot you. They're going to do whatever it is they need to do to cover their own ass, which is rule number one. And when they brought his friend in, and basically that's when we find out, no, they're going to kill him. They're not going to bring him in. It's just, I really like that part to it, because you don't know if you can trust his boss, if you can trust the other CIA people in there too. So the fact that this is almost 50 years old and there's that kind of corruption and cynicism in government, I think is absolutely beautiful. And that's one of the reasons why in the 70s people found this movie a little bit disturbing, not because it's graphic, but because of after Richard Nixon and how horrendous some of the things he did, getting us off the gold standard price controls. One of the lowest rated presidents of all time in his career. I'm not going to get into specifics, but the bottom line is he was not a well-liked individual on both sides of whatever party you claim to be a part of, or even independence. So you stick Robert Redford in a situation like this, he's believable. But yeah, I liked it a lot. Max von Sydow didn't come across as a complete ape. I mean, he was a pretty smart dude, and he was more cynical, and he knew how the world worked. That was an interesting piece, I thought.
Yeah, one of my favorite scene on this whole entire movie is when he goes, he uses his training from the Army Signal Corps. For those who don't know what it is, there's basically the communications and information systems, back in the armed forces. So he basically goes up to where New York they have the phone companies, walks in, grabs the phone that they use for like when they have to go to the lines, the master phone thing. Walks into basically the telephone company, Bell, goes in there, goes into switchboard and starts listening on, and he listens to different things. He calls somebody and then he listens to, like, gets a name, he listens to it, and then it just, I love just the whole thing of that. Nowadays you can't do that. Nowadays everything is like through digital, or satellite. You can't. There's no land. Hardly anybody uses landlines, so it's harder to do that. Unless you have some kind of equipment, but just like for a regular person like this, it was much easier. He knew about this, how to get into over the basically listening on people. I always thought that was so cool. I was like, dude, he just walks up, grabs the phone out of the van, and then takes it and walks over to like the company and like, yep, just walks in, sneaks in, goes to the back room, finds the number for the thing. I was like that right there. It's like that's awesome.
Well, that's spy stuff, and that's what we like. We like it when somebody can figure something out and then apply it, and you don't have to be super smart to do it, but it takes specialized training and all that. And in the 70s, you had this anti-government movement, I would say, and in our reviews of the Dirty Harry films, we definitely saw the corruption angle from that perspective. But the general mistrust of the government by the general public that had been going on since at least the 50s in film, if not earlier, you definitely see it. And despite the fact that Hollywood's its own bubble and very liberal, the fact that they had that distrust of the government in there, like I say, was a theme. I mean, a Gene Hackman movie called Conversation, kind of similar to this in some aspects, and other films too in the 70s really portrayed that. And unfortunately too, I think one of the more difficult things in these kinds of films, we've mentioned it briefly, is just how in the 70s a lot of America big cities turned into shitholes because of progressive policies, and you could argue getting off the gold standard and economic malaise and other things that would happen. And that's outside the scope specifically of what we're talking about today, 3 Days of the Condor.
The other thing with
the plot at the end mentions about how everything's related to oil from the Middle East, which was a huge thing in the 70s.
Yes.
Still is today, technically.
Before that, I love his utilization with the fact that he got convinced, Kathy, aka Faye Dunaway, to basically go meet with Cliff Robertson, his character Higgins, at the restaurant, and have him entice him to come back to her car. He gets in, and then he pulls a gun on him, and then they had their conversation. And I said, Higgins' character in here, he's the one that he's supposed to, like, I'm trying to bring you in, and he's like, how do I know? How can I trust you? Everyone's trying. I've had 2 people try to kill me. My best friend's dead. I've been framed for his murder. Framed for the other people that were my coworkers, almost like my friends. They're dead. And it's like, I'm trying to do the right thing. I am not a killer. I am not into anything. I just want to. I don't want to die. And he's at the end, after the whole thing with the assassin and all stuff, he talks to Higgins and he says, hey, it's like, they're outside the New York Times building. He says, hey, I told him a story. And he's like, Higgins, like, what do you mean you told him a story? He's like, what have you done? He's like, well, he's like, he says, Higgins tells Turner, he's like, it's like, dude, you're about to become a very lonely man. It's like, it's just implying, like, it's just like, you're gonna not want to be around anybody you like, anybody you think you can't be able to trust anybody because you've done this, because you're a whistleblower. And then he's like, and Turner says, like, it's like, hey, if you guys kill me, they print the story, they'll do it. Like, my friend's an editor, he'll do it.
But what does his boss say? His boss says, how do you know that?
Yeah. As he walks away, Higgins says, and he says, like, how do you know? And they leave it at that. Like I said, the whole thing is like, I was watching. I love this movie because it's your classic spy movie. I would have probably loved it even more. Imagine if it would have been like a noir movie, little black and white and stuff back in the day. Because that's what it was. It's like cat and mouse, and who do you trust? And like anybody, those were the movies. You had the mob after you, or you had the corrupt cop. It's like you're the detective, the PI, and you can't trust this dame because this dame basically put a hit on you because she used you. It's like it's just what it felt like. This kind of felt like a little noir movie almost. But like I said, Robert Redford really sells the role in this. I'll just say this for those who haven't watched this, check out this movie, watch it. You can probably get it for $5 at Walmart if it's out anywhere. Right now, it's I believe it's playing on Hulu. So if you have a Hulu account, you can go watch it for free, I believe. Also, if you turn out you really love this movie, there's a book you can go check out. That is from 1969. That's a real old book. It's by James Grady.
6 Days of the Condor. Yeah.
It's called 6 Days of the Condor.
Mm-hmm.
And then if you really want to watch more about this, there's actually a show. They have 2 seasons out now with Max Irons. It's called Condor. Look that up. It's I know they aired it on AT&T, but I think right now the new season is gonna be on Epix, which also owned by DirecTV, I believe. So look for it on there. I actually you might be able to find the TV series for sale on Amazon. So definitely check out this movie though. I'm like Rob. I really want you to watch the TV show and compare it to the movie, and tell me how much you like or dislike. Because, like I said,
it's hard because when you think of 3 Days of the Condor, you go, "Oh, it's Robert Redford." So who can live up to that? And that's one of the things about Robert Redford and his legacy is that he's a charming, likable person. He doesn't go crazy with his personal politics in the film. This, to me, is almost an apolitical film. It's not saying one side's better than another. It's simply describing how the government is, and it's got a guy in a everyman situation about, which is just awesome. I mean, it's for me personally, I almost like a little bit more of a darker type film as far as how this goes. This one felt a bit mainstream, and I think that's because of Faye Dunaway and Robert Redford. That no way takes away from how good this film is. It's very enjoyable. It's entertaining, and it's one you put in the plus column when you want to argue how we talk about how our extreme movie shows, we like to say it's 80s based, but we'll cover anything really. But damn, there's some good stuff came out in the 70s, and you forget just how good some of the stuff is. And this is definitely one of those films that you go, oh, what about 3 Days of the Condor? Well, Jude, that's really, really good.
When we think of fugitive movies, we always go to the fugitive. We go right to Harrison Ford. Everybody says, oh, yeah, that's a great movie. But then when you ask them about this, they've never heard of this movie. So I would recommend watch this because I like this. I like as much as I love Harrison Ford, in that movie. This is a better movie than that. I'll say that. And I'll die on that.
Yeah, it's very tasty.
Yep.
Well, there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. 3 Days of the Condor, Robert Redford, Faye Dunaway, Max von Sydow. Check it out. Beautiful film from 1975. Just debating whether or not to call this an extreme classic or not because, it's only about 50 years old. But, God, that is a long time ago. But great film. Check it out. Let us know what you think about it. Also, FYI, for those of you, we're going to be posting it here soon, but we're going to be going on a Rocky review starting this next week here with the original Rocky film. We're going to be doing those on Sunday nights live, so take a look forward to that. Also, check out our James Bond streams. Every other week or so, we're dropping a new episode. We're reviewing the James Bond films in orders, and we're also currently finishing up season 3 of Twin Peaks. That's Professor Pixel 9, RDV, and I have been doing select movies on Tuesdays. So we might have some more 70s spy stuff coming up next week. Maybe more Robert Redford, maybe Gene Hackman, maybe all of them. We
should do Xtreme Redford for a while.
Well, you had Extreme Cyborgs rocking in this one. I'll say that.
Hey, Mr. Guys, Breen, thank you for showing up.
Thank you for listening. Mr. Breen, sir, it would appear that you're late. Yeah, but at least you're here and you're ready. Eric Breen's the kind of guy that buys a ticket for the show and shows up in the fourth quarter and goes, hey, what'd I miss? 3 Days of the Condor, Mr. Breen. Check it out. I'm glad you have the Blue Wrench. Rocky on Sunday, Eric. Be there for it, okay? Have a good night, everybody. Stay extreme.